1 Samuel chapter 19. So far, we've been kind of dealing with in our narrative here, specifically the story of David's life, Saul's life, Jonathan's life. Those have kind of been the main characters that we've been dealing with so far. First it was Saul, he was kind of the main character, and then Jonathan was kind of in there, and then David kind of rose up on the scene because, why? Do you guys remember?
He was made king.
Yeah, that's
He was
right.
made king.
Yeah, David
He
was
was
anointed.
son of Jesse.
Yes, son of Jesse. He was anointed to be the new king, and so why is Saul no longer anointed? Or I guess he was anointed, but why is he no longer?
He didn't listen to God anymore.
Yeah,
Right.
that's right. He completely disregarded God's word, and he refused to submit to God's authority. He refused to recognize that God is the ultimate authority over Israel, and instead Saul was treating his kingship as I'm the highest authority. This is mine to control. And so as a consequence for that, God told him, first of all, your heirs will not sit on the throne. You will not have the privilege of having a lasting dynasty. And the second consequence after that was, you are now being removed from the throne, Saul. And so Saul is counting the days, essentially. And he's trying so hard to grasp, to hold on to what he knows is being taken away from him. And so this kingship, the throne, and as well as the Holy Spirit, the presence of God within him, that's being taken from Saul and now has been resting on David. So we're seeing David rising up in he's blessed by God. He is prospering in all he is doing. We saw him face Goliath, and just that he rose to the challenge. And it wasn't because of anything that he was capable of. In fact, he was the least capable of anyone. And yet it was his courage with God that was able to help him to go out there and meet that giant. And so I'm loving the contrast in the story. David versus Saul, or even Saul versus Jonathan, all these contrasts that are happening. It really helps to paint the overall picture and give us some incredible lessons as well. So let's continue here in chapter 19. Now Saul told Jonathan his son and all his servants to put David to death. But Jonathan, Saul's son, greatly delighted in David. So Jonathan told David, saying, Saul, my father, is seeking to put you to death. Now, therefore, please be on guard in the morning, and stay in a secret place and hide yourself. I will go out and stand beside my father in the field where you are, and I will speak with my father about you. If I find anything, then I will tell you. So then Jonathan spoke well of David to Saul his father, and said to him, do not let the king sin against his servant David, since he has not sinned against you, and since his deeds have been very beneficial to you. I'll stop right there real quick. So remember in the last chapter, Saul was trying to get David killed through these indirect attempts. He was putting him out into battle where he would hopefully get taken out. He even got him, like, a couple of times he tried to marry him off to one of his daughters, because then if he's now the son-in-law to the king, then he's a higher target for any enemy out there on the battlefield. Saul was doing everything he could, indirectly, very kind of discreetly, to make it so that David died in some way. And so now, Saul is saying, like, he's got to go. And he's not being as discreet about it now. And Jonathan's like, okay, I'm gonna see what I can do about this. And we're gonna see a huge part in this chapter, and even in the next chapter. Jonathan has this very difficult challenge before him, a very difficult conflict, almost divided loyalties. How can he be loyal and faithful to his father, who is his king as well, while also being faithful to his friend, who is the anointed of God? That's a very difficult predicament that he's in. And so we're going to see Jonathan as he kind of struggles through this. So Jonathan says, okay, David, my dad's really, really mad at you. You better just go find some hiding spot. I'm going to go out and talk to him and see if I can talk some sense into him. So what does he do? He goes and he speaks well of David to Saul. And he says, look at the wording there. Do not let the king sin against his servant David. So he doesn't say, don't you go sin against David. He starts using the term king and servant because that infers that a king should not act this way against a servant. He's saying, you're the king. Start acting like one. A king should be just. This is a very unjust thing that is happening here. And furthermore, David has done nothing. He says, he has not sinned against you. And not only that, but his deeds have been very beneficial to you. He's speaking truth to Saul here. He's cutting through the high emotions. Saul is just completely clouded with jealousy and hatred. And it's just these high emotions. I know we've all had those times. Maybe that time of the month, maybe. Not that that's what Saul's going through here, but but you understand that. Where just nothing really makes sense and you just know that you're upset about something, you know? Saul's kind of going through something like that. His emotions are completely clouding his judgment. They're getting the better of him. And so what does Jonathan do? He's trying to cut through that with the truth. He's speaking truth here. And he says, this is not how a king acts against a servant. This is not what a just king looks like. And David has done nothing to deserve it. And in fact, he's done the opposite. He's done everything to deserve your praise and your commendation. Because look, what did he do? He risked his life to go out against the Philistine. Verse 5, where he took his life in his hand and he struck the Philistine. And the Lord brought about a great deliverance from Israel. And you saw it, and you rejoiced. Why then will you sin against innocent blood by putting David to death without a cause? His plea is an appeal to justice. He's saying, none of that makes any sense. None of that is right. That is not how a king acts. Why are you acting in this way? Why are you doing this? And apparently, Jonathan's words get to the heart of Saul, because in verse 6 it says, Saul listened to the voice of Jonathan, and Saul vowed, as the Lord lives, he shall not be put to death. As the Lord lives is one of the strongest oaths that an Israelite can make. It was a very strong vow for him to say. It's a shame it meant nothing. Because did Saul try to keep that one bit? No. Not even a little. It was empty.
I think Saul sounded paranoid.
Very.
So I don't think he was playing with a full deck of cards there. I mean, because the jealousy made him so paranoid.
Yes, he was. And I think the paranoia actually began before the jealousy. I think he was paranoid ever since the day Samuel told him, God's taking your throne away from you. Because from that point on, he's on the lookout for anything that might take the kingdom from him and from Jonathan.
I thought it started when the women were singing David's.
I
I mean, that was one
yes,
point.
I think that's what clued him into David is now taking the kingdom. And so now he is targeting in on David.
Well, and he knows also that the people
Yeah.
think more of David. That's the
Right.
paranoia in
Yep.
there again.
Yeah, exactly. But I agree. He's very paranoid. You see this up and down, all through. If you read the rest of this 1 Samuel, and you see the rest of how the story of Saul and David play out, it's this roller coaster of, I want to kill him, I'm so sorry, I acted foolishly. I want to kill him, I'm so sorry. It's like this. And so Saul's just really, really unstable. And that is very much contrasted to the life of Jonathan and how he acts in all of this, and the life of David and how he acts in all of this. Not that either of them are perfect, but we see a very different picture from both of them.
If Saul had been loyal to God, would Jonathan have been the likely heir?
It's very possible.
Or did they not always do that? I mean, because David was
Right.
out of Saul's family altogether.
Right. It would naturally have been Jonathan to be next. In fact, that's what Saul planned, because he didn't care about God's plan. He wanted his own plan, and his plan was that Jonathan was going to take the throne after him. But I still think that David was always part of God's plan.
Oh, yeah, obviously.
So who knows how God would have worked that in the timeline?
Jonathan doesn't seem jealous of David being
No,
king.
not one bit.
In fact, he even says,
It speaks to his
be right there
character.
next to you.
Yeah.
And his faith, that he's not jealous of David for,
Yeah.
because Saul's plan was for him, Jonathan, to take the throne.
Exactly.
And so he,
And never once did Jonathan try to make some sort of power grab at all. Yeah. Yep. So Saul, he makes this vow, and it means diddly. And then verse 7, then Jonathan called David, and Jonathan told him all these words. And Jonathan brought David to Saul, and he was in his presence as formerly. Okay, so Jonathan has kind of patched things up for the time being. And Jonathan, at this point, he thinks everything's good. He's under the assumption, my dad just made a vow not to try to kill David. I believe him. I don't know that he was totally clued in on all the indiscreet attempts that Saul made on David's life. And so at this point, he's just thinking, okay, Dad was a little jealous, a little angry, but I've talked some sense into him. He's vowed. We're okay. And that's kind of the mind of Jonathan at this point, so keep that in mind. And then, verse 8, there was war again. And David went out, and he fought with the Philistines, and he defeated them with a great slaughter, so that they fled before him. So again, David goes into battle, and again, he prospers. He does very well in battle, and you know that every single time David goes out and he does well in battle, what happens? Saul is jealous, and then he does something stupid. Which is verse 9. Now there was an evil spirit from the Lord on Saul as he was sitting in his house with his spear in his hand, and David was playing the harp with his hand. What do we notice about this verse?
Contrast
Contrast where?
between what was in each other's hands.
Yes. I thought that was so interesting. They're both holding something in their hands. For David, it's an instrument of worship and blessing. And for Saul, it's an instrument of destruction and power. And it shows what each one of them is holding on to in their lives and in their hearts. Really interesting. I like that. Verse 10, Saul tried to pin David to the wall with the spear, but he slipped away out of Saul's presence, so that he stuck the spear into the wall, and David fled and escaped that night. David's going to be doing a lot of fleeing and escaping. This is not the last time that this is going to happen. And then Saul sent messengers to David's house to watch him in order to put him to death in the morning. But Michal, David's wife, told him, saying, if you do not save your life tonight, tomorrow you will be put to death. So Michal let David down through a window, and he went out and fled and escaped. So Saul is sending spies to David's house to watch, to see, okay, he escaped. I tried to kill him, and he escaped. Maybe he went home. So he sends spies there to see whether David went home and to kind of figure this out with a plan. And somehow Michal, Saul's daughter and David's wife, somehow she's aware of what's going on. And she tells them, you have to get out of here or you're going to be dead by morning. And so she lets David down through the window. That really reminded me of Paul, the Apostle Paul, being let down out of the window. Was it in a basket? Is that it? Why do I remember the flannel graph version of him being lowered in
I
the
think
bed.
that's Moses.
Oh. I'm kidding. So sorry.
It might have been a basket for him.
I just remembered this like giant oversized handbasket with little balls sitting in it. I don't know. I don't know. Okay, so then Michael, this is verse 13. Michael took the household idol and laid it on the bed and put a quilt of goat's hair at its head and covered it with clothes. So who all here thought that this was her taking an idol and stuffing it under and making it look like the body?
Me.
Okay,
Yeah.
me too. And it
It's
still
not.
might have been, but when I was researching this, a lot of people were saying it was actually like she made the shape of the body out of something else, and that this idol was a small, like almost like talisman type thing. Whether they were holding it in their hand or they wore it around their neck, and it was supposed to be this kind of like good luck charm talisman type of a thing. It was the same thing that this word for it is called teraphim, and it's the same thing that Rachel took. Jacob's wife Rachel, when they were escaping and leaving Laban, her father Laban, and it said she took the household idols and she stuck them in her saddlebag, and then she sat on the saddlebag, and when he was searching for him, she said, "I'm on my period, sorry, you can't look here." And it's the same thing. So it's something that can be fitting into a saddlebag, essentially. And so I guess it doesn't matter either way, whether it was an idol that was this big, and she stuck it on the bed and then put the blanket over it and made it look like that was David, or whether she, I don't know, stuffed some towels or whatever to make the lump for the body and the goat's hair at the head, and then this little talisman would have been placed on to make it look like he's sick, and we're doing everything we can to make sure that he's getting better.
That makes so much less sense to me than dressing the idol and putting the goat hair on it.
Less or more sense?
Less, that it's the little idol.
It's the little thing. Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't matter either way,
The way
but
it reads is like she took the idol and put clothes on it.
yeah, that's what I thought too. And maybe that still is what it is. Who knows? But
What's a household idol?
so it would have just been like a little, almost like a good luck charm type of a thing. Kind of like how, we have crosses in our houses sometimes.
So it wasn't any reference to pagan worship?
I think there was something like that. I'm not sure if this is what this was exactly. And honestly, I don't even think it belonged to David. I can't see David
can't
being
see
the
David
kind to
even
have that.
Having an idol.
But
in
here
his
it
home.
is in the home of the king of Israel's daughter. So it's still throughout the land. Canaanite. I have a feeling this was Canaanite in nature. This isn't something that God would have allowed
No,
under his law.
right.
But Canaanite nature was still very pervasive and was in the royal households.
Okay.
Yeah. Interesting. And so we see verse 14, then when Saul sent messengers to take David, she said, "He is sick." And then Saul sent messengers to see David, saying, "Bring him up to me on his bed, that I may put him to death." So first there was spies to watch and see if he was home. Then they knock on the door to arrest him, and she goes, "Oh, sorry, he's sick." And I've been back then with not very much for cures. You really don't go around sick people unless you absolutely have to. Plus, a sick person would have been unclean according to the law. So, multiple reasons to stay away. And Saul goes, "I don't care. I don't care if you get sick from this. I don't care if it's an unclean thing. You get him and you bring him here so that I can kill him." That's where Saul's at. He's completely disregarding, that may seem like nothing there, but he's completely disregarding God's law in this moment here. "Bring him up to me on his bed. I'm going to put him to death." And when the messengers entered, behold, the household idol was on the bed with the quilt of goat's hair at its head. So they realize it's a ruse. It's a deception. And so Saul said to Michal, "Why have you deceived me like this and let my enemy go so that he's escaped?" This is here Saul calling David his enemy. out loud. Maybe he called him his enemy in his heart up until this point, but I think this is one of the, if it's not the first moment, it's one of the first moments that he's called him his enemy out loud to someone. So that's big. And Michal said to Saul, he said to me, let me go. Why should I put you to death? So what's Michal saying here?
David was gonna kill her if he didn't let her go.
Yeah, she's saying he forced me, or he said he would kill me. Is that what happened?
No.
No. So she is lying to Saul. So notice this in this chapter, the first part we see Jonathan's attempt to save David from death. And what did he do? He spoke the truth. And now we have Michal's attempt to save David. And she chooses to try to save him with the attempt of lying and deception. Two totally different ways of trying to save David. And so then David fled. This is verse 18. David fled and escaped and came to Samuel at Ramah and told him all that Saul had done to him. And he and Samuel went and stayed at Naioth. And it was told Saul, saying, behold, David is at Naioth in Ramah. So Naioth would have been like a certain area in Ramah, like maybe a settlement, a village, that kind of thing. Within the whole area of Ramah, where am I going to find them in Ramah? Naioth is this one area that they're at. And so Saul finds out where they're at, and he sends messengers to take David. And when they saw the company of the prophets prophesying, with Samuel standing and presiding over them, the Spirit of God came upon the messengers of Saul, and they also prophesied. So Saul finds out where they're at, and he sends soldiers to go arrest David and to bring him back. And they don't even get to David. They get to Samuel, and Samuel's surrounded by a bunch of prophets. Maybe it was like a village of prophets or something. Who knows? One of the artsy-fartsy camp guys. People. I don't know. They're prophesying in the Spirit, and the messengers, they're there to do what?
Kill David.
Now, I don't know if they're there to kill him or to arrest him, but either way, yeah, they're supposed to take David or something. And they end up prophesying instead. So their command from Saul is overridden. And now they have to do the will of God. The will of God completely overrode that command from Saul. And so then it was told to Saul, this is verse 21, when it was told Saul, he sent other messengers, and they also prophesied. So Saul sent messengers again, and the third time, and they also prophesied. This actually happens, something similar to this, to the prophet Elijah. On Sunday mornings, Derek's going through the life of Elijah, so eventually, hopefully we'll get there. Spoiler alert, sorry. It's one of those names that all sound alike. Ahaziah or Amaziah, I don't know, something's Ziah. And he sends a captain with like 50 soldiers to go and arrest Elijah for, I don't know, something he said probably. And they get there, and Elijah calls down fire from heaven and consumes them. And the king finds out this happened. He sends another captain with 50 soldiers. The second time, Elijah calls down fire from heaven and it consumes them. Third time, captain of the guard goes, hold on a minute. I've heard this happen twice now. I know what happens. So he goes and he begs Elijah. He bows down before him and he goes, I know you're a man of God. I know what you've done the last 2 times. I'm begging you to please spare my life and the life of my men. And Elijah does. He goes, I recognize your humility and you recognize that I'm a man of God. And so he spares him. And he actually goes willingly with him to the king. So really, really interesting and very similar stories here. 3 times that happened. Finally, Saul goes, fine, you can't trust good help these days. I'll just go do it myself. So he himself, this is verse 22, he himself went to Ramah. And he came as far as the large well that is in Siku. And he asked and said, "Where are Samuel and David?" And someone said, "Behold, they are at Naioth and Ramah." And he proceeded there to Naioth and Ramah, and the Spirit of God came upon him also, so that he went along prophesying continually until he came to Naioth and Ramah. So he doesn't even get there, and the Spirit of God comes on him. He's been without the Spirit of God this whole time. This is huge for him. Not because he wanted it, not because he asked it, but because God said, "I know what you're doing and what your intent is, and I am protecting David." And this was God's way of protecting David. And I think it's really interesting that he didn't choose some way of ending Saul's life in this moment. He could have, and we would have all read it and gone, "Yeah, he deserved that." But instead, this is a mercy. God is still sparing Saul's life. Saul continues to live for a number of years after this, and God still protects David. And above all, we see God's power and his sovereignty and his will being magnified and glorified. It's at the top. That's what we see. That's what we come away with from this. And then verse 24, he also stripped off his clothes, and he too prophesied before Samuel. And he lay down naked all that day and all that night. And therefore they say, is Saul also among the prophets? So what I think is interesting about this verse is we might read it and go, that's kind of weird. He just laid around naked. That's kind of weird.
I can think of better ways. It just threw me off. I can think of better ways.
Right? Yeah, it's weird to read it.
Yeah.
But really what we need to recognize from this is he's not just taking off any clothes. He's taking off his royal clothes. The royal clothes that are his status, his symbol of power. That is what he took off. And that's exactly what God is trying to tell Saul right here. You take that off because it means nothing. It's something I gave you. And you are abusing that. And instead, he's stripping himself now, and he is prophesying. He's speaking the words of God. What are your thoughts from this chapter?
Kind of crazy.
Yeah, there's a lot going on.
I
isn't
know. Like you said, roller coaster ride.
there? Yeah.
Yeah,
What exactly are they doing when they're prophesying?
I don't know. They could be just glorifying God or speaking the word of God. It could be maybe I don't know that all prophesying is foretelling future things. I don't think that is all of it. I think that's a part of it. But we're not told specifics on exactly what they're saying.
There's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on. There's a lot of prophesying. Yeah,
A lot of chatter.
a lot of chatter.
Michael, telling lies.
Mm.
Well, so did Rahab.
Mm.
She told lies
Yeah.
to let the, I can't remember the names, flee from, so
Yeah.
was it bad that she told a lie?
It's a good question. I think it's always bad because God did give us that command. It's one of the 10 Commandments.
Do not lie.
However, God still knows how to use our wrongdoings for his glory.
Right.
And he did use that here. Maybe Michael would have chosen not to lie, and God still would have done something with that.
Right.
You know,
David still would have been protected.
David still would have been protected. And so I think that's where the contrast is. Jonathan chose to do, to try to save David's life in a way that honored God,
Right.
and Michael did not. And so there's that contrast that we're seeing there. But God still protected David no matter what. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wasn't Rahab in the line of Jesus?
Yes, she was. Yes. We'll see in Michael's life that she does not continue on a good path. And
Oh, she comes up here some more?
I'm not sure where, if it's in 1 Samuel or if it continues in 2 Samuel. actually, I think it is in 2 Samuel. There's a point where, actually, she's given when David is a fugitive, she's actually given by Saul in marriage to another person, because she's like a pawn, a political pawn, essentially. And then eventually, David takes her back as his wife when he is officially king. But then there's a moment where David is bringing the Ark of the Covenant into the city, and he's stripped himself of his royal robes, and he's dancing in the streets in front of the Ark of the Covenant. It's going along, and he's celebrating, he's glorifying God. And Michal sees him, and she has disdain for him. She's humiliated and shameful of his actions. She thinks it's not what a king should be.
He's not a good dancer of a dance.
I don't like his moves.
We've all been there. Stop dancing, dear.
Was he naked?
Well, I don't think he was truly naked, but I think he probably just had undergarments on.
Oh, good.
Yeah. And because of that, because of what was in her heart, God actually kept her from having children for the rest of her life.
Yeah.
Mhm. So, interesting to see how that story unfolds for her. Well, let's continue on to chapter 20, since we have a little bit of time. Chapter 20, verse 1. Then David fled from Naioth and Ramah and said to Jonathan, "What have I done? What is my iniquity? What is my sin before your father that he is seeking my life?" So this continues straight off of the last chapter, chapter 19. He flees from Naioth and Ramah, and he goes and he seeks out Jonathan. And remember, they are just these best friends. They have the closest bond. And he's like, "I don't understand. Why does your father want to kill me so badly? I must have done a sin. I must have done something wrong. So what is it? Tell me what my sin is, and then it'll make sense." And I'm sure we've all done that sometimes when we have just unbearable hardships and we're thinking, what did I do to deserve this? I must have done something. So we're not that far off from David here. And he says to him, this is verse 2, "Far from it, you shall not die. Behold, my father does nothing, either great or small, without disclosing it to me. So why should my father hide this thing from me? It is not so." Jonathan's in denial. He doesn't really think that his father's trying to kill David. He's still in the mindset of that vow that his father made before him, that he's not going to kill David. And so he doesn't think that that's actually what's happening here. So they're kind of at a disagreement. David's like, "I promise you, he is trying to kill me." And Jonathan's like, no, he's not. Maybe he's angry. He gets a little angry. But no. And yet David vowed again, saying, "Your father knows well that I have found favor in your sight, and he has said, 'Do not let Jonathan know this, or he will be grieved.' But truly as the Lord lives and as your soul lives, there is hardly a step between me and death." And so David discloses to him, Saul knows that you and I have this great love for each other. He doesn't want you to know about this, but this is really happening. And so then he uses that strong oath and vow, "Truly as the Lord lives and as your soul lives." There's that strongest vow and oath that he can make. There's hardly a step between me and death. Whew. I mean, you can just feel the heartache that David feels in this moment, where he's just like, everywhere I turn, he is there trying to kill me. That's awful. And so then verse 4, Jonathan said to David, "Whatever you say, I will do for you." He's basically saying, okay, I believe you. How do you want to do this? How do you want to address this? So verse 5, David said to Jonathan, "Behold, tomorrow is the new moon, and I ought to sit down to eat with the king. But let me go, that I may hide myself in the field until the third evening. If your father misses me at all, then say, 'David earnestly asked leave of me to run to Bethlehem, his city, because it is the yearly sacrifice there for the whole family. If he says it is good, your servant will be safe. But if he is very angry, know that he has decided on evil. Therefore, deal kindly with your servant, for you have brought your servant into a covenant of the Lord with you. But if there is iniquity in me, put me to death yourself. For why then should you bring me to your father? Okay, so this is David's proposal to Jonathan. The next day was going to be the new moon, and the new moon was this festival, a feast in Israel. They celebrated it. It was, the new moon, new month. It was essentially a time of like recommitting yourself to God. Every month you had this opportunity to just kind of renew your commitment to God, and being a son-in-law to the king, as well as one of his like top officers or whatever, in Saul's army. David's expected to be there at that table. And I mean, they notice when somebody's missing from the table, because it's supposed to be a time of committing yourself to the Lord. But really what they're doing in these political circles is they're seeing who's committed to the king in these feasts and festivals. If you're sitting there, you're committed to the king. But if you're not, what does that mean for you? What does that mean? So, David knows this is going to be the moment. This is how we find out what's in Saul's heart, what his true intentions are. And so,
He asked Jonathan to lie.
he does. He does ask Jonathan to lie. Yep. When you read the whole story of David, it's very interesting to see kind of, he also has some ups and downs, and he makes some mistakes, and he learns from them, and God teaches him through that. And it's not just the adultery with Bathsheba and the murder of her husband. It's not just that moment. There are other moments like these where we see David did not act in a way that was honoring to God. But God still used it, and God still taught him. And so the excuse, the lie, is that David is going to be with his family for the yearly sacrifice. If you remember at the very beginning of this entire book, Elkanah and his wives Hannah and Peninnah, they were traveling every year for family sacrifices. And so apparently that was a common thing for families to do. Every year they would make a trip to do a sacrifice. And so that's what the lie here is, that David is joining his family for their yearly sacrifice as a family. But that's not what he's doing. He's hiding in the field. And then verse 8, therefore deal kindly with your servant, for you've brought your servant into a covenant of the Lord with you. But if there's iniquity in me, put me to death yourself, for then why then should you bring me to your father? David's saying, I know what kind of position I'm putting you in here. I know that this is not an easy thing to do. But if you think that I deserve to die, that I've deserved to die for some reason, then just kill me yourself. I'd rather die at the hand of someone that I love than someone who hates me. I would just you kill me now. I'd be okay with that. I would deserve it, and I would die honorably at the hand of someone who cares for me, rather than casting me out to Saul. Yeah, that's kind of where he's at. Verse 9, Jonathan said, far be it from you, for if I should indeed learn that evil has been decided by my father to come upon you, then would I not tell you about it? And then David said to Jonathan, who will tell me if your father answers you harshly? Jonathan said to David, come, let us go out into the field. So both of them went out to the field. So Jonathan, he's like, no, I will help you. I will do this for you. Even though it's hard, even though it puts me in a weird position, even though my loyalties are divided, I will still do whatever I can for you. You're my friend, and you're the Lord's anointed. I will do that. And so Jonathan is the one that comes up with the second part of the plan. Verse 12, Jonathan said to David, "The Lord, the God of Israel, be witness, when I have sounded out my father about this time tomorrow, or the third day, behold, if there is a good feeling toward David, should I not then send unto you and make it known to you? If it please my father to do you harm, may the Lord do so to Jonathan, and more also, if I do not make it known to you and send you away that you may go in safety. And may the Lord be with you, as he has been with my father. If I am still alive, will you not show me the loving kindness of the Lord, that I may not die? You shall not cut off your loving kindness from my house forever, not even when the Lord cuts off every one of the enemies of David from the face of the earth." So before he proposes the second part of the plan for how to tell David, he actually just appeals to David heart to heart. He goes, "I know you're going to be the next king. And I know that this is going to get real ugly, because my dad does not want that, and that's what God has decided. There's a conflict of wills, Saul versus God, and Jonathan knows this is just going to get messy, but eventually David will be king. And naturally, this happened a lot. If you're ever reading like anywhere in Kings, a lot of times when a king came to power, he would kill anybody who had even a shot at taking the throne from him. Anybody in a bloodline that could possibly come and usurp that from him. And Jonathan's like, don't do that. Just when you are king, just show loving kindness to my house. Because Jonathan would have naturally been the heir to the throne. And so Jonathan's saying, like, don't let the politics get in the way of our friendship. That's kind of his plea to David here. And so, verse 16, so Jonathan made a covenant with the house of David, saying, "May the Lord require it at the hand of David's enemies." Jonathan made David vow again because of his love for him, because he loved him as he loved his own life. We read that before a couple of times. Boy, this guy really, really, really loves him. And then verse 18, then Jonathan said to him, "Tomorrow is the new moon, and you will be missed, because your seat will be empty. When you have stayed for 3 days, you shall go down quickly and come to the place where you hid yourself on that eventful day, and you shall remain by the stone easel. I will shoot 3 arrows to the side, as though I shoot at a target. And behold, I will send the lad, saying, 'Go find the arrows.' If I specifically say to the lad, 'Behold, the arrows are on this side of you, get them, then come. For there is safety for you, and no harm, as the Lord lives.' But if I say to the youth, 'Behold, the arrows are beyond you, go, for the Lord has sent you away.' And as for the agreement of which you and I have spoken, behold, the Lord is between you and me forever." Okay, so there's the second part of the plan. That's how Jonathan is going to secretly tell David of what the news is. And they have that plan in place. And he says, "Lord, may the Lord be between you and me forever." Another time we've read that is actually when Jacob and Laban are parting ways. And they're saying, "The Lord be between you and me forever." But that was almost like a threat. The Lord is going to stay between us because we should never meet ever again. And may the Lord stay between us and separate us forever. But this is a different kind. This is the Lord between us, as in we are connected by our love for the Lord. That's where our hearts are bonded, is in a shared love for God and a shared commitment to God's will, a shared submission to God's authority. And that is what makes their bond so strong and their friendship so beautiful. So, David hid in the field, this is verse 24, when the new moon came, and the king sat down to eat food. The king sat on his seat as usual, the seat by the wall. Notice that. You can't sneak up on somebody if your back's up against a wall, right? Then Jonathan rose up, and Abner sat down by Saul's side. And Abner is Saul's cousin, maybe? Or I can't remember what relation they are, but he's basically his like right-hand man. And David's place was empty. Nevertheless, Saul did not say anything that day, for he thought, "It's an accident. He is not clean. Surely he is not clean." He's basically thinking like, if you remember from the Levitical laws, if you like touched a dead body, You were unclean. It wasn't an immoral thing. Not every unclean thing was an immoral thing, but there were plenty of unclean things that were just, that was just part of life. And so he's thinking, oh, something's come up, and he's unclean, and that's why he can't attend the festival. Came about the next day, the second day of the new moon, that David's place was empty. So Saul said to Jonathan his son, why has the son of Jesse not come to the meal, either yesterday or today? Marcia, you said son of Jesse earlier.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I think actually from what I learned, the son of Jesse, that reference is actually a little bit of an insult.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
I don't know why, but when that's used, it's almost like a little dig. Instead of giving someone the honor of saying their name, this is how they're referring to them. And it's just a little...
To say Jesse's son,
yes.
rather than son
Rather
of
than-
Jesse.
No. To say son of Jesse rather than to say David, to say his name.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So to say David would have been an honorable thing to that
Okay.
person, because that's their name. That's who they are. But to say son of Jesse, it's almost derogatory in a way, because it's just belittling them to, you don't have a name. You're just the son of somebody.
And it's not, okay, it's that it's the son of somebody, not that it's not particular to Jesse, that it's a
No,
insult.
it's not. Mm-mm. No, it's just a dig. I'm not even giving you the honor of saying your name. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Verse 28, Jonathan then answered Saul, David earnestly asked leave of me to go to Bethlehem, for he said, please let me go, since our family has a sacrifice in the city, and my brother has commanded me to attend. And now, if I have found favor in your sight, please let me get away, that I may see my brothers. And for this reason he has not come to the king's table. Then Saul's anger burned against Jonathan, and he said to him, you son of a perverse, rebellious woman. Ooh, that's strong language. Actually, in the original language, it's really strong.
Mine's
It's
worse.
It's what? Does it say
What you
slut
got,
or something
Denise?
like
Whore.
that? Whore, yep.
Oh.
Son of a slut, whore. I mean, it's
You
yes,
stupid son of a
yes,
whore. That's what.
yes. Didn't know that was in the Bible, did you?
This has been an interesting chapter.
We didn't have Ray Reed, we could have heard everybody.
Oh my gosh.
What is your translation?
NLT.
Oh yeah, that's fun.
Yeah, I like that one.
You don't like it?
I do, I have
Oh, yeah.
NLT, but it's too big. I bring this little one.
Good. That's funny.
And then it continues, do I not know that you are choosing the son of Jesse, there that is again, to your own shame and to the shame of your mother's nakedness. He's basically saying, you were born to be the heir, and you are dishonoring the very moment of your conception, the very reason you were conceived. That's what he's saying. He's like, your life is worthless if you are not going to be the heir. Because at this point, Saul is recognizing Jonathan's chosen a side. In Saul's mind, it's me or David. Choose a side. And what he doesn't realize is Jonathan saying, I pick option 3. I choose God's side. He doesn't realize that. And he also is not on board with the fact that God has chosen David to be the next person on the throne. And so that's what's going through Saul's mind in this moment. Verse 31, for as long as the son of Jesse lives on the earth, neither you nor the kingdom will be established. Therefore now send and bring him to me, for he must surely die. So that lays it all out for Jonathan. There is no denying now that Saul is very much intent on killing David. And the reason being, because before David's like, what have I done? The reason now is very much out in the open. It's because Saul's will is against God's will. And there's that, he's not backing down from it. Verse 32, but Jonathan answered Saul his father and said, why should he be put to death? What has he done? And so he's still trying. He's still trying to appeal to his father. He won't give up. Verse 33, then Saul hurled his spear at him to strike him down. The very one that's supposed to be the heir to the throne. Boy, Saul's really off his rocker at this point. Because he just said, you're supposed to be the one that's next in line. And then he just tried to kill him, so that doesn't make any sense. So Jonathan knew that his father had decided to put David to death. Then Jonathan arose from the table in fierce anger, and he did not eat food on the second day of the new moon, for he was grieved over David because his father had dishonored him. So now Jonathan is abandoning his father. He's leaving his father. Remember, that was a much more significant statement than just getting up from a table. It was saying, I am not aligned with you. I am not committed to you and what you are doing. So it was very significant for him to do that. Now it came about in the morning that Jonathan went out into the field for the appointment with David, and a little lad was with him. And he said to his lad, run, find now the arrows which I'm about to shoot. And as the lad was running, he shot an arrow past him. When the lad reached the place of the arrow which Jonathan had shot, Jonathan called after the lad and said, is not the arrow beyond you? And Jonathan called after the lad, hurry, be quick, do not stay. And Jonathan's lad picked up the arrow and came to his master. But the lad was not aware of anything. Only Jonathan and David knew about the matter. Then Jonathan gave his weapons to his lad and said, go, bring them to the city. And when the lad was gone, David rose from the south side and fell on his face to the ground and bowed 3 times. And they kissed each other and wept together, but David wept the more. Jonathan said to David, go in safety, inasmuch as we have sworn to each other in the name of the Lord, saying, the Lord will be between me and you, and between my descendants and your descendants forever. And then he rose and departed, while Jonathan went into the city. Just breaks your heart. It's a Hallmark movie is what this is.
Well, except for that little mother of.
Right, that would not be on Hallmark.
No.
Yeah.
It would have just cut scene.
Right.
You would have gotten the gist. Yeah, so David, he's just absolutely heartbroken by this. They both are. And look, notice that David bowed 3 times before him. He's still so humble in his approach to Jonathan. He's the crown prince still. Even though David knows that he has the crown next. And Jonathan never will. He never, ever, ever lets that affect the way that he treats Jonathan. Or even the way he treats Saul. There's a couple of times where David has a few moments of like, but for the most part, David treats Saul very, very well during their conflict. And then that last verse where Jonathan says, the Lord be between me and you and between my descendants and your descendants forever. That is exactly what happened. Later on, when Saul dies and Jonathan dies in battle, and David then later becomes king, he remembers that covenant and that oath that he made with Jonathan. And he asks, is there anyone that is a descendant of Jonathan? And there was one. Anybody remember his name? Yeah, Mephibosheth, yeah. And for your mouth full of marbles kind of name.
Your mouth full of digraphs.
Yes. And so, he invites Mephibosheth guy to come and he eats at David's table for the rest of his life. And so David honored this moment here. What are your guys' thoughts on this chapter 20?
Interesting.
Yes.
I didn't get that much out of it when I read it, and then I'm like, oh yeah,
I know.
you just pull so much out.
It just tugs at my heartstrings, like,
Yeah.
makes me just so sad for them. I think, if I remember correctly, there's only one other instance, I think, where David and Jonathan meet again in their lifetimes. And the rest of it, they're parted.
So, question, in verse 41, when David rose from the south side and fell on his face to the ground, bowed 3 times, was he bowing before Jonathan? Was that what? Okay.
Yes. But did it seem almost ritualistic, like I
I
get
didn't
up
know
and
if he
I
was
bow?
bowing before God, if he
Oh,
was
I
bowing
see.
before Jonathan.
I think he's bowing before Jonathan. Could be wrong, but that's what I gathered from it.
So the king to be is bowing before the one who was supposed to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
I took that as like David showing how much he loved and cared and appreciated Jonathan. Not that he was like worshiping him.
No, I don't think a worshiping thing, but I think it was more of a acknowledging still. This is the king's son, the prince, the crown prince. There's still a hierarchy, you know. He's still very, very humble in his approach to Jonathan, even though David is anointed to be the next king, but he still views himself as the lowly shepherd boy next to the prince, you know.
I just took it as his gratefulness for all that Jonathan had done.
And I
Not
think that's part of
necessarily
it.
the prince or the
Yeah.
heir.
I think-
That way.
That's probably part of it, but I think the bowing specifically is you did that to someone that you
That you respected.
respected, yes.
That's kind of how I
Revered.
took it.
Revered,
Yeah, that-
right. That you acknowledged is higher than you, I guess.
Position.
Think of Mordecai, King Haman. Mordecai refused to bow to Haman. This is a, yeah, I think reverence is probably a very, very appropriate term for it. An honorable thing. So, next week, let's see if we can do 21 and 22 then. Those chapters go together well anyway, so might as well. Molly, would you mind closing us in prayer? Thanks.
God, just thank you for bringing us together tonight, just because those that couldn't make it, just thank you, just again for the reminder of, just people that were faithful to you and that put their trust in you, and just how you protected David and Jonathan as well. And just the reminder that is for us of, we know we can depend on you and put our trust in you. Just pray that we would be thinking about that as our weeks go on. Again, just thank you for this time together, and just for Rochelle helping lead us in that. Just thank you for all of that. In Jesus' name, amen.